here from the Neon Tea Party. I'm so excited for this video. I'm going to be showing you guys how to tie-dye in multiple fun patterns. So I'm going to go over a bunch of patterns with you guys, and we're going to be using Tulip One-Step Tie-Dye. So that is the type of dye that we're going to be using today, and the instructions are specific to using Tulip One-Step Tie-Dye. It's such a great, colorful dye that makes tie-dyeing really easy because you get to skip the fabric prep step, which makes it so fun and really easy to just start tie-dyeing right away, hence the name One Step. So the patterns I'm going to be showing you guys today are the classic swirl pattern, like that. I'm going to be showing you bullseye, which looks like that. And I'll show you as well how to do mini bullseyes, which look like this. I'm also going to be showing you a striped pattern, which I don't have a sample here for, but it's really, really fun and simple. I'm going to be showing you this fun scrunch pattern, and lastly, this Shibori inspired repeating triangle pattern, which you can also do using squares. So the things that you're going to need, of course, are your items to dye. You always want to use fabrics that are all natural. So these are 100% cotton t-shirts. You could dye rayon, wool, silk, anything that's natural. And if it's a blend, as long as it's at least 50% cotton in your blend, sometimes you'll find like polyester and cotton blended. Just make sure that it's at least majority cotton. The color may not come out as intense as it looks like in the bottle, but it should adhere to some of the fiber. So other than the items that you're dyeing, you're going to need some water. I have a bucket over here. You're going to need your dye and dye bottles. And you can see this is a little packet of our dye powder, our Tulip One-Step dye powder. You're going to need some rubber bands. You're going to need, if you're measuring out your dye to be a lighter intensity, or if you're mixing colors, then you might want to have just a little mixing spoon. It's like a little measuring spoon. This one's 1.25 milliliters. You can also use a quarter teaspoon to help measure out your dye. You're going to want to have either paper towel or a tray with a rack to dye over, and this is going to be what we're going to use to dye on top of, and our tray here is going to catch the excess dye. If you don't have one of these, just use a paper towel, and the paper towel will absorb the extra dye that kind of bleeds through. You're going to want to have plastic bags or plastic wrap to put your finished tie-dye items in to sit. And then if you're doing the triangle pattern or the square pattern, which is the same thing, just the different shape, you're going to want to have some cardboard ready. I have these little cardboard triangles cut out, so you'll see how these come into play. So I'm going to make some space over here. And we're going to start with Swirl Pattern. This is one of my absolute favorite patterns. It's kind of that quintessential tie-dye pattern. When you think of tie-dye, you'll often think of swirl. So before we do anything, we're going to want to take our fabric and dunk it in water, squeeze it around, and just wring out the excess water. So we always want to make sure that our fabric is wet before we dye it so that the dye can flow through the fabric in a nice, even way. So once your item is damp, we're going to lay it out like so. and you're going to pick a middle point on your item. I'm dyeing all t-shirts today. So you're going to pick a middle point on your fabric. You're going to just pinch it right where you want that middle to be, and you're going to start swirling the fabric up like so. And you'll see that when I'm swirling, my fingers sort of create these two little pinchy holes. So what I like to do is put my fingers in those holes, spin the fabric around until my hand can't spin anymore, take them out, put them back in the pinchy holes, and keep spinning. And I'm also using my left hand to just sort of hang out over the fabric to make sure that the fabric doesn't tower up at all. You want to make sure it's nice and flat and that you could see these little swirl folds forming. And once you get to about here, when you can't really spin any longer, you can just manually swirl the rest of your fabric around like that. And it's these folds that are going to absorb the dye, and all of the little bits on the interior, that's what's going to stay white and result in that really cool swirl pattern. So now we're going to take some rubber bands to band up our swirl pattern, which is looking really great here. And we're just going to go underneath our swirl and go across all the way. We want to make sure that our rubber band is nice and tight. I'm going to come back to this one. And we're going to now go with another rubber band across. So we're making a plus sign here. And then I like to add 2 more rubber bands going on the diagonals. And I'm going to see if I could go around a second time. So you want to make sure always that your rubber bands are nice and snug. This is going to, again, sort of keep those white parts really tight on the inside and prevent too much dye from leaking through. All right, this is feeling pretty secure, but definitely feel free to wrap your rubber band around a second or third time if you need. So that is looking awesome. So I'm gonna go ahead and dye this one right now. So I have my handy dandy tray here, and each one of these slices, or you can also group 2 slices together and do this in quarters, but each slice can be a different color, and we're going to dye each slice the same color on the front and then flip it around to the back, and do that for each one of the slices. So that is looking awesome. I have 4 colors here, and you can see that I chose and placed colors next to each other that when they bleed into one another, like this turquoise and yellow here, that they form an attractive color and they're not sort of muddied when they bleed into one another. So this is a really great tip for choosing your colors to make sure that no matter where you're placing your dye, you're going to have beautiful color in every spot. So I'm going to take my swirl t-shirt and I'm going to place it into a Ziploc bag. And you can also use instead plastic wrap, which works really, really nicely. And I like to just take a little paper towel and give it a wipe to make sure we don't get any errant spots if we can help it. Squeeze out the air. And we're just going to set this aside for 8 to 24 hours. So the next pattern we're going to do is a bullseye, which we're going to start as usual by taking our fabric, dunking it in water, and squeezing out the excess. And the bullseye pattern is a fantastic pattern for if you just want to keep it simple and keep things pretty foolproof. So for our bullseye, we're going to start in the middle, just like we did for our swirls. You'll pick a middle point, give that middle point a pinch, and then you're just going to gently pull up on your t-shirt and let it drape down like so. And then we're going to tie rubber bands all the way down our t-shirt, starting at the top. And you're going to want to make sure your rubber bands are wrapped around nice and tight, like so. And just keep going down in even increments. All right, so that's looking awesome. Our rubber bands are wrapped around super tightly to make sure that we get those great white rings all around our bullseye pattern. And you can use the same technique to make little bullseyes across your fabric instead. So you can see here that there's all these mini bullseyes. This is just 2 rubber bands for each of these little bullseyes. And when you do this, just make sure that when you're adding the dye, you kind of hold each bullseye out, dye that, dye each one of the bullseyes first, and then you can go in with your squirt bottle and get that dye in between your little mini bullseyes. But right now, I'm just going to show you this one bullseye here and how we're going to apply dye to it. All right, so I have my bullseye on my tray ready for dyeing. I have my dye colors picked out. I'm going to apply a different color dye to each one of these sections. But of course, you can choose any pattern combination you want, whether you want to dye your item one whole color or switch off with just 2 colors, however you like. So I'm going to start at the top. So that is looking pretty gorgeous, if I do say so myself. You could see that I've again chosen colors that when they run into one another, they have almost like an ombre effect. There's no interruption in the color flow here. So I think this one's going to come out really beautiful. All right, so the next pattern I'm going to show you is formed pretty similarly to the bullseye. It's a stripe pattern. So again, we're going to take our item, let's dunk it in our water, squish it around, and wring out that excess water. we'll start by laying our item out flat, and we're going to gently push the fabric towards the center to create one long vertical line like so. And you could be a little more meticulous about this than I'm being. You could actually do an accordion fold across if you'd like, but I like to keep it a little more organic like this. You'll just want to make sure that your folds are looking more or less even, like so. And then we're going to add our rubber bands incrementally down our fabric the same way we did for our bullseye. So I have my t-shirt all bound up. My rubber bands are nice and tight to help get us those white stripes across our shirt. I'm going to go in and just make sure these rubber bands are nice and close to each other. And I'm going to do this shirt all one color. So I have my dye here, and I'm just going to go at my fabric with my one color dye. All right, so I have my striped shirt here ready to go. I'm just going to stick it in a plastic bag. And I cannot wait to see how this one turns out. All right, our third pattern we're going to do is a scrunch. So let's pop it in our water. And scrunch pattern is another one that's sort of foolproof, and you can kind of just go at it however you like. So I'm going to take my shirt, which you can see has some nice stains, and I'm going to just start scrunching the fabric towards the center. And I like to start close to the center and sort of work my way out, trying to get even-ish folds. And depending on the shape item that you're scrunching, you're going to end up either with, you know, this sort of log shape. If you're doing a t-shirt, if you're doing something square like a bandana, you might get more of a circle. So whatever shape you end up with is great, and then you're just going to take your rubber bands and wrap around your fabric however you can to keep that scrunch shape going. I just kind of zigzag around and across. And the one thing that you want to look out for while you're getting your scrunches in place is just make sure you don't have any large folds of fabric covering your pretty little scrunches underneath. You want to get all of those gorgeous folds in there. So just make sure that you don't have any large overlaps of fabric. Okay, so I have my crazy scrunch pattern all bound up with my rubber bands, and I'm just going to add, I have a bunch of different purpley blues here, so I'm just going to add those. If you want to use any colors that are in a different color family, just make sure that if they're going to be next to each other, you leave ample white space in between them, again, to avoid that brown muddy color sort of coming up where those colors meet. That is looking so pretty. So let's grab a plastic bag, pop it in, and let it sit for 8 to 24 hours. All right, so just one more pattern to show you guys. This is going to be that repeating triangle pattern, which is a classic Shibori style tie-dye pattern. So fabric goes into the water. And for this, you're going to need, in addition to your rubber bands, you can go ahead and get those cardboard triangles at the ready. We're going to use those sort of as bookends to our folds. So I have my shirt here. And we're going to start with an accordion fold across our t-shirt before we do sort of a triangle accordion fold down. So you're going to lay it out, and let's start folding it long ways. So you can start by folding your shirt or whatever it is that you're dyeing in half the long way. And then from here, you can either accordion fold it over once and then tuck in the sleeve on the other side, or if you want to be a little bit more even, we can do this individually on each side. So I'm just going to bring over, I have my fold down the middle. I'm going to take one side, fold that in half, just so the end of your t-shirt meets with the center crease, and then just bring the sleeve back. And then I'm going to flip this whole thing over and do the same on the other side. So I'm going to fold this in half and then bring that sleeve back. So you'll have this long, skinny sort of stripe of fabric that now we're going to accordion fold on an angle to make triangles. Let's start our triangle accordion fold at the bottom here. You're going to take the bottom of your fabric and you're going to fold it up on an angle so that the bottom of the fabric is alongside the side of your fabric here. So we're just going to fold that up on an angle. You'll have a nice angle down here, and then you're going to flip that triangle over on the straight horizontal line here towards the back so that you're keeping that triangle fold going, and then you're going to repeat those two steps. You're going to now bring your bottom row, your bottom line of your fabric up to the side to create that triangle, and then you're going to flip it back just along the bottom line of your fabric. So hopefully you guys are seeing that going back and forth like this is creating your triangle pattern. Awesome. So we have our triangle accordion fold ready to go. I'll show you from the top. It looks like this, almost like a little sandwich with many layers. And now I'm going to take my 2 cardboard triangles and let's go ahead and sandwich our folded fabric between the 2 triangles and use our rubber bands to hold the entire thing in place. This is looking ready to go, so gorgeous. I'm going to do some navy and black for this one. And you can do classic indigo dye, either indigo color or actual indigo dye to get that beautiful deep shibori look. You could choose any color you like and just do one color, or you can use multiple colors. Don't worry about getting your cardboard full of dye. That's totally going to happen. What the cardboard is doing here, it's acting as sort of like a fold, how we have these folds that are protecting the inside. So you get that great white triangle on the inside. This cardboard on the outside folds is going to prevent the dye from filling in those triangles, and you're going to get the white triangles on the outside as well. All right, so this is looking fabulous. Have my plastic bag right here. I'm gonna pop that in. All right, so those are our 5 patterns I'm showing you guys today. What you're going to do once your items are done sitting in their dye, you're going to remove them from the plastic bag. You're going to give them a rinse under warm water until the dye runs clear. Make sure to remove all the rubber bands and give it a nice thorough rinse. And then you're going to place your items right in the washing machine. You can wash together items that have the same dye colors, but if you have different dye colors on various items, you're going to want to wash those separately to avoid any dye from getting onto one another. Once your item has been washed, you're going to dry it by itself without a dryer sheet, and then you're ready to wear it. You can also wash it individually after your first wear as well. And that's just a nice preventative measure in case there's any residual dye left over. But for the most part, after one thorough rinse and wash, your item is good to wear. Thank you so much for joining this tie-dye tutorial. You can find all the supplies from today's lesson over at theneonteaparty.com. We have an awesome tie-dye kit that comes with everything you just saw here, including the dye, the bottles, rubber bands. You can purchase a tie-dye rack separately and check out more of our colorful craft tutorials over on our YouTube channel, as well as over at theneonteaparty.com. Thanks so much.